think now we're live. There you go. Now we're live. If I click this link now, hopefully we're only 15 to 20 seconds behind like I outlined before.
Mm-hmm. Yep, there we go.
You see it?
Yep, I see it.
Cool. Um,
Yep. I'm looking at my ugly face. We're good to go.
no,
So,
don't say something like
at,
that about yourself.
you know what it is.
You got the
I
nice
dismissive on that front.
glasses. You know, we've
Thank
been
you.
in quarantine for some time. Your hair looks like it's well kept.
That's grown at 17 inches, certainly.
Yeah, it's a lot, man. Trying to take care of your grooming habits is just like a tall order for any male, I feel. Most males. For me, for sure. Never mind in the midst of a quarantine and having to be like in your apartment, you know.
No, exactly. Plus, I got
So
my good old collection of books behind me, so we all have that going for me, I guess.
yeah, no,
All right, so
you got books and you're a writer. I got like shit on the walls and toys. It's like a grown up shenanigans only.
oh no, trust me, this is the less obnoxious wall. If you saw the floor, it'd be like crap probably all over the place. But it's all about what you don't show on top of what you do show.
Well, I appreciate the books. I if I had a better camera, you'd see like I've got Ninja Turtles on the shelves and lots of video games and blah blah blah. So we are
Sounds like
officially
fun.
live on the YouTube. So yeah, I want to make sure that I share that link as well. I just checked the audio. Everything sounds good from
Good,
my
good.
phone. So far, so good.
All right.
I don't want to fuck this up.
Just
Uh,
hoping not.
let's see. Let's go. Super dope fam. I wonder what people think I sound like when I tweet things in all caps. You just got a rare example of what I sound like when I tweet things in all caps.
Oh no, I know what you mean. I half the time when I tweet anything, I can imagine it in my like. I can imagine some people would imagine it in a nasally sounding voice, kind of like this, whereas my voice is naturally a little deeper. But I've heard people who've heard my voice afterwards are like, "Oh wow, your voice sounds different than I imagined it. You always think it was."
Oh,
So
wow. I thought your voice was going to be way more annoying. Is that what they're trying to say?
I was imagining like a Mandark from Dexter's Lab thing going on. I'd imagine so,
Mandark. That's
something
freaking
like that.
funny.
Yeah,
Well,
that annoying kid from I think it's the same voice actor from what was it, Polar Express? The one kid who was like the know-it-all who like
I don't think I've ever
everyone
watched Polar
hates.
Express.
I mean, I only watched it once when I was a kid, and nothing but that kid's voice stands out.
Doesn't sound like a very positive experience with that kid's voice, man.
I didn't like it too much. It's a controversial opinion. Apparently, people love Polar Express. I am not a fan.
So wait, Polar Express. I feel like that was in the midst of like a lot of CG, not CGI, whatever animated Christmas movies. Is that Tom Hanks as the train conductor one?
Tom Hanks is everyone. Yeah, that was the
Wait a
first
minute, he's
of I think the
everyone.
many
That's
CGI.
not a joke.
Well, not everyone, but he does the kids' facial animation. He does the conductor's facial animation. He does the old bum's facial animation. He has Santa Claus's facial animation,
Jeez
and most of their
Louise,
voices.
he really is everybody.
Well, that was back when Zemeckis was just experimenting with motion capture. So everything he did was a motion capture nightmare.
You know what I heard somebody say today? That
Hmm.
Hollywood's just waiting for Zemeckis to die, so and they've already got the next Back to the Future script all written
I
up.
think I saw that same video. Honestly, was that the Mr. Sunday Movies
Oh yeah.
one?
That's exactly what it
Yeah,
was.
yeah, I just saw it before too.
Yeah.
That's yeah. Zemeckis is a genius, but he's also just out there. Like he's a like the last several years of his films. I don't think he's made a lot of great films recently, but his old stuff is incredible. Like
Yeah.
some of the best.
Like when you make the Back to the Future trilogy, you pretty much get a free pass for the rest of your life.
Yeah, after that, you're good. Whatever you make, that's people are gonna see it.
Oh man, so good. All
And Who
right.
Framed Roger Rabbit too? Don't forget that
Oh
one. That's
duh.
a
I kind of forgot.
masterpiece.
Yeah, that's one that I used to watch all the time as a kid, but I don't think I've ever watched it as an adult, honestly. If,
That's a film that ages really well. I find I like it more the older I get. Like that's why I liked as a kid quite a bit. But as I got older, ancient and wrinkled as I am now,
Yeah, all
Um,
28 years of you, right?
roughly, yeah.
Yeah. Come on.
That movie has I've just come back to it. It's a brilliant movie. Anyway, so we do have a stream, don't we?
Yeah, we do. So I think everything's good from a technical perspective. Of giving it a couple minutes. We'll see if anybody shows up. If they don't, fuck them. I think everything we just did was technically for our patrons for Patreon. If
Exactly,
you're
pre-show.
catching this pre-show, patreon.com/Dragon Ball Super Dope, you can get a bunch of weird extra stuff like this. So, um, today, well, let me start for real. Welcome
Mhm.
into Dragon Ball Super Dope. My name is Kyle. Thank you for checking this out. Let's see, what's it? Sunday night? It feels like time isn't even a real thing anymore. Sunday, June 14th. Special episode today. You guys know if you listen to the show regularly that I have been banging my head against the wall trying to find somebody to talk about the latest manga chapters with because all of my friends are, I guess, illiterate. So I have been asking several people. I asked several friends of mine this week, and all of them say, "Nah, I'm just gonna read them when they come out in like a chapter, proper volume, and take it from there." But I asked my friend who is a writer for comicbookresources.com. His name is Anthony Gramuglia. If he
Mhm.
was keeping up on the manga, and he said, "Nah, that manga doesn't seem like it's my bag." But how do you
I didn't say
feel?
that. I
Well,
didn't say that. I said it's hadn't caught up recently
all
with
right.
them
So,
behind.
how far behind would you say that you are?
Um, the universal conflict arc, very behind.
All right. I mean, well, the good news is that the Universal Conflict arc wraps up very handily and just
Well, I mean,
rolls right into the conflict next after that.
mm,
Galactic Prisoner Patrol, whatever the heck. But you followed it up with, even though I'm not up to date, how do you feel about Dragon Ball AF? And
oh,
yeah, I almost laughed a little bit because I don't know, Dragon Ball. Basically, the reason you ask is because, like I said, comic book resources writer, comicbookresources.com writer.
You can just say CBR. That's fine too.
Way easier.
Yeah, way
CBR.
easier.
CBR writer, and you recently, just yesterday, had an article published. It like you were talking that you had this article in the queue, and you weren't sure when it was going to go up. And like a few hours
Mm,
after our conversation, it happened to go live, coincidentally.
yeah, it
Um,
was exciting. It was a good. It was a. It was a fun article because Dragon Ball, having grown up with Toonami airing, with Dragon Ball being a new thing back in the late '90s, early 2000s, there were all those kinds of crazy rumors, like ridiculous rumors, and that particular one had always stuck with me. I don't mean to cut you off there, but that was just like
No, that's totally okay. It's that
enthusiasm.
if you see me looking up at this looking up away from the camera at all, it's because I'm
Yeah.
looking up at my elevated television to see what's going on my TV to make sure things are still afloat. It's not cuz
You're making sure everything's.
yeah, it's not cuz I'm losing interest in what you're saying, I promise you.
We
But
should probably explain to people who are listening after this is posted. This is currently we're currently live streaming this conversation.
yeah, so
So that's
I guess it'll be a slightly more edited version for the formal podcast, but yeah, probably does bear mentioning off the top that this is a live quote unquote podcast. We've done live podcasts in front of actual audiences at venues in the last couple of years. We've done like 3 or 4.
mm,
They're always a fun time. Obviously, that's not really in the cards for us now, but this is about as live a podcast as we have available to us right now. So, Ant,
mm.
thanks for taking the time to talk with me tonight, man. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I enjoy talking. Oh, and about Dragon Ball. I enjoy talking about Dragon Ball also.
Well, you know what sucks too is that listeners probably have heard me say your name in the past, like a handful of times in the past. But you and
Mhm.
I did an awesome, like one of my
Oh,
favorite episodes of Super Dope that I've probably ever recorded. That
mhm.
revolved around, of all things, Dragon Ball Evolution and the Korean fan film from like 1990. And
And the Chinese one too from 1991.
and the
It
long
was
and
a
the
great conversation.
long and the short of it
Um,
is, every time I talk with somebody who's not one of my idiot friends, it ends up having some kind of huge technical snafu, or I fuck something up royally, and that one was not even salvageable, unfortunately. Um,
even this podcast was cursed so far. I mean, think of the rage
yeah,
we've had just
yeah,
talking.
yeah,
Like your computer reset, my computer was absolutely fine, but
yeah.
No, no.
It's like my computer knows. It's like, hey, you got to talk to somebody cool today. Fuck you. Literally, I sat down to just get the streaming stuff set up, and it just froze. I had everything else all checked off. I sent you the outline, emailed it all,
Oh,
whatever.
everything.
It was
We were on schedule, and then all of a sudden, the tech just sucks. Like,
yeah.
that's what it comes down to. Tech is awful.
All things considered,
Tons.
though, I mean, only
Hmm?
15, 20 minutes late. That's not awful for me. Like
No,
I'll take that.
at least I've seen professionals who would delete hours, let alone not professionals like we are professional, but like the 2 million subscribers on Twitch, guys that
Yeah.
have some, shit happens. Sadly,
Makes me feel a little bit better then.
Okay.
So we had this awesome conversation about Dragon Ball Evolution. Now we're talking about this other thing that I don't think I've ever talked about on the show before. So when you mentioned it, I kind of laughed, but then had that thought, I've never really talked about it. And it's because I didn't really have a very positive, I guess, opinion of it. Like, I think the thing that makes Dragon Ball AF, or what made it interesting back then, was that the internet and like the connectivity of the world was starting to become more of a common thing for kids, for everybody. And what do you do when you jump on
Mm-hmm.
the internet when you're 9, 10, 11 years old? You look up the things that you like. You look up boobies and Dragon Ball Z, and you find these Dragon Ball Z images because there weren't any videos to watch. Like, the only thing you had back then was like forums, message boards, and pictures. You would find these pictures of like a Super Saiyan 10 Goku and be like, oh my God, Dragon Ball in Japan is the most wild thing. And like, it was this self-perpetuating thing because you had little glimpses of what this other stuff was, but you had no way to actually confirm its real existence or real canon to the series. People talked about it. They whispered. There was a lot. It perpetuated the conversation because nobody knew what to make of it. Nobody knew what it was, if it was real or
I mean, if
not.
you ever went on GameFAQs forums, you ever went on GameFAQs forums back in the day, back in like the
Not for Dragon Ball
2000s?
stuff. I mean, try probably to
Oh,
just get like cheat codes for Super Nintendo games.
that too. Those what was it? The GameFAQs forums for free for Budokai games would always have these like 13-year-old kids who swore they saw the show. It was airing in Italy. It's on Japan. It's in Italy or Portugal or whatever. Random European and oddly not Asian country this Asian cartoon was originating from.
Right.
And they always say, "Oh no, you don't understand. There's episodes, licensing problems. They can't come over here. But trust me, it's cool. Believe me.
Yeah.
My dad works at Nintendo. He told me everything.
My
that
dad
kind of
works at
nonsense.
Nintendo, man. That was the line when we were kids. Oh
Basically.
man. Yeah, that was
But
another thing because it was like a property that was, localized pretty much everywhere in the world. When a kid said, "Oh, this is a show they made in Italy," you were like, "Well, I know that Dragon Ball's in Italy." But like I don't know, me certainly as a 10 or 11-year-old kid, I had no knowledge or like awareness of licensing deals and how those things worked. I just thought like Italian people liked it enough that they just kept making more of them. That's cool as hell.
what's odd is that actually that kind of did happen with other shows. I know Lupin the Third Part 4, when it aired, started in Italy
Huh.
2 months before it aired in Japan. But that's because Lupin the Third is obscenely popular in Italy, I've been told by people who live in Italy.
Hasn't that also
No,
been
Lupin
going
the
on?
Third's great.
Hasn't it been going on since like 1979?
Well,
Three?
Lupin the manga started in the late 60s. The first animated series was in either late 60s or early 70s, and from there it just kept coming back. Came back like every few years or so.
Huh.
Sometimes some better than others.
Interesting. So I'm just
Yeah.
turning up our volume levels a little bit because I got a comment
Gotcha.
here that says we're a little bit low. Rigby, let me
Yeah,
know if
speak
this.
up.
Yeah, Rigby, let me know if this is better first, man. I'm not sure that it
Hmm.
is, but hopefully it is.
No, yeah. Well,
Um,
hopefully for the podcast version, I can make us sound great. At least mine,
yeah,
anyway.
no, you and I will sound good on the recorded piece of it. I think it's just how I have my settings set up in OBS right now is what the problem is.
Gotcha.
Also, we have a couple people in the chat room. What up, Brett? What up, Brian Melchiori? Melchiori is one of our patrons. Thanks for joining us, brothers. So
Nice.
we get like why we're talking about it. We kind of understand why it was an interesting thing for kids like us to, it's the same kind of mentality that like perpetuated Pokemon Red and Blue rumors on the playground when we were kids. Like, there was no real way to confirm them. You just had to take your friend's word for it. And then that person
Mm.
who you trusted, you would take their story and go tell your other friend about it. And so the big, long game of telephone continues, you know?
Do you know how many times I tried to get into Bill's garden in red and blue?
Oh, dude, didn't we all?
Do you know how many times I tried moving that damn truck outside the SSN?
Yeah, man, there was a Mew under there.
Too damn many.
Yeah.
No.
Uh,
And the thing that's interesting about all these rumors that you're pointing out is there's always the nugget of truth to all of them. There's always a nugget that makes you think. Like, for example, there was a rumor many years ago that there was the Dragon Ball OVA, the plan to eradicate the Saiyans, I think it was specifically. Or, you know, but that was really just a cutscene from a game released. It wasn't
yes.
real OVA. It was released on VHS, but it wasn't an OVA.
I have the
But
VHS
because
on bootleg with all the weird animated video game, like 16-bit scenes, or is it? It might even be 8-bit.
hmm,
I forget what year it came
okay,
out. It must have been 92,
92, 93, because it was like Lloyd Slug had just come out
Yeah,
and Cooler.
and he's in it because of the Death Strong gas or whatever the heck. Yeah, so it's definitely after
Yeah,
the at least the first Cooler movie. Good
yeah,
call. See, this is great. Dragon Ball history lessons. You're welcome, kids.
yeah.
So
But
that
what was Dragon Ball AF though? I feel that we were talking a lot about it, but I think some of the people listening might not have even heard of it.
Well, that's the thing. I feel like the origins of it are kind of muddy, and I feel like you did a good job at least highlight because I don't know. 11-year-old Kyle heard or saw these pictures, and I was like, I know that's fake. I have. I was very lucky as an 11-year-old to be able to get access to bootleg tapes from Japan, VHS stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and I knew GT. That was it. There was nothing after that. If
Mm-hmm.
there was, I would have had bootleg tapes of it by now in the year 2000, 2001. So when these photos started popping up, I was like, hey guys, you're all dumb. That's some fan shit. I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
And I never really paid it much mind. I didn't realize that there's basically two different iterations of it. And it didn't start, or how did it start? Did it start as like a formal fan manga, or did it
Mm-hmm.
start just as like fan art, fan photos? Like, give me a little bit of background on the actual definitive beginnings on this, and then how Toyble picks it up and runs with it.
Exactly. Okay, so here's how it started. The beginning of it was simply fan art. Fan art of a presumed Super Saiyan 5. It's one of the most iconic pieces of Dragon Ball fan art, really ever, because it's one of the most widely spread, one of the most widely copied pieces of fan art, and it sparked discussion. And it was, I'm not exactly sure who did the fan art initially, but I know where it was spread. It was spread mainly on internet forums and early Dragon Ball fan sites that were presenting it as the theoretical Dragon Ball AF. Now, most of the really, really good Dragon Ball websites, they were saying, "Hey, listen, this is just a fan thing. Don't give it too much credit."
Yeah.
The less reputable ones, which of course, like many irreputable places, tended to get a lot of traffic and get a lot of sway, especially among impressionable readers, was saying, "Hey, look, this is a potential new series." And because they didn't have to cite their sources, they could just say that. Back in the early days of the internet, no one really checked. There was no call outs that you could really, there's no Reddit you could just, site check your information on. So if they said it was true, if you couldn't prove otherwise or didn't know better, you might believe it.
Yeah. Your word
And from
against
there,
theirs, basically. That's all you had.
exactly. And on top of that, like with most cases, a lot of people got interested in this potential theoretical thing. And plus, a lot of people, after finishing GT, just want to know what happened next. So, a combination of three things happened. People trying to cash in on the popularity of this Super Saiyan 5 fan art of AF, people drawing fan art of just what they think should happen after GT, and people who genuinely were drawing fan art because they thought AF was real and wanted to draw fan art before they saw it.
Huh.
Just the idea of it alone. So you have these three very different strains of thought all interacting at the same time, and you can't tell which is which.
Hmm. What's interesting is that if you take some of those general concepts of what kind of helped perpetuate AF in the beginning there, people who weren't sure what it was but knew that they wanted to be like the first to do the art of it or be the first to talk about it or whatever, You could take some of those general principles and update them for 2020 very easily in terms of
Mhm.
Dragon Ball content creators for YouTube, for podcasts, whatever. I just thought
Mhm.
that that was pretty interesting. So it starts
Oh yeah.
primarily as fan art, but I mean, the one thing that people have probably heard me say about Dragon Ball AF, if anything, consistently on the podcast throughout the last few years, is that what came from Dragon Ball AF is Toyotaro, who was known
Mm.
as Toyble. It's cool to know that the next in line, like the guy who presumptively at some point in the future will get the keys from Grandpa Toriyama and be the guy to take over. We think anyway. It's cool to know that he has very humble beginnings as a fan of the series, much like we all are, and started doing something, just that came out of a love from the series and just making comic books of it. And now he's elevated to this point. How does he take the initial Dragon Ball AF like art inspiration that he's seeing, and how does he decide, or what makes him decide to turn it into this more formal comic?
What's very interesting is that Toyble's comic is very different from the fan art initially presented. He doesn't use much of the really crazy ideas that was being presented. After a while, there was some strange fan arts. There was an evil version of Goku at Super Saiyan 6. They were going to bring there was fan art of King Vegeta coming back from the dead, although it's not certain if it's Prince Vegeta just becoming a king or if it's
No,
the actual dead
it's
guy coming
definitely
back from
dead King Vegeta back from the dead to be a king
which
amongst
is
all of his very powerful family offspring. And he
yeah,
is
it's
very
like an
weak.
ant trying to pretend he's the king of the it just seems like a bizarre choice.
Yeah, he's gonna get all rough and gruff and loud one day, and they're gonna be like, "Yeah, whatever, Grandpa. We'll get off your lawn. Shut the fuck up, please."
I mean, at this point, like Trunks could like just Pan could just kick him in the shins and that's it, game over.
For real.
Also, Pan being that's a big thing. Also, Pan becoming Super Saiyan, that was a big sticking point for a lot of AF material. Was that Pan would become a Super Saiyan, which I think is pretty. Everyone kind of assumed would happen in GT, but it didn't. So
Yeah,
there
very
you go.
strange that it didn't happen in GT. I hate that it didn't happen in GT.
Because it's stupid.
No,
The
it's
many failings of GT.
well, yeah, GT can be definitely pretty stupid, but I thought that you meant yeah, because her being a Super Saiyan would be stupid. Girls can't be Super Saiyans. That's stupid. Can't tell you
Well, the
how many times
reasoning
I've heard
was
that.
that because Pan had such diluted Saiyan blood, she couldn't become a Super Saiyan, which makes total sense considering that Goku Jr., who has even more diluted blood, is a Super Saiyan.
Yep.
So that logic holds up great.
Pop. Right
These
out the
earphones are
window.
terrible and they keep falling out of my ears.
Oh man, I know that feeling. That's why I got these over the head ones because my head's so
I am
big.
so jealous.
There's no way they'll fall off.
Ugh.
Actually, I got them tied into the little toppy top thing on my hat. That's what I call the top of my hat, toppy top. Anyway,
No, that
so
was unfortunate. My earphones broke just when the quarantine started. My bigger ones. Oh, it was terrible.
my earbuds just
But no,
broke last week. I'm actually really miserable and sad about it, but they haven't completely lost functionality yet. But I can't use the little button thing on my buds, and I refuse to get AirPods because they're stupid expensive, and I'll definitely lose them. So I'm good.
Mm.
Anyway,
Sucks, really.
so we
Anyway, so
takes this
yeah,
fan art
sorry.
and he decides to start to make it into a comic. And I never, because I was so quick to just dismiss the whole premise of this thing out of hand and just be like, that art is fake, you're dumb. I never really knew what I guess like the images are more what I know of AF. I never really knew anything about the story, but I grabbed a screenshot from your article. I want to read it to the people real quick so that way they have a general overview of what Toyble, aka now Toyotaro, what his Dragon Ball AF plot was, in case y'all don't know, because I didn't know. Okay, the plot
Yeah.
of Toybles. This is from Anthony Gramuglia's article on CBR.com. Go check it out. The plot of Toyble's Dragon Ball AF is that Goku's seed is stolen by a female Kaioshin, which she uses to impregnate herself and create Goku's illegitimate son, officially named Zyko. Is that right?
I thought it was like Caesar, but I could be mistaken.
So
I
officially named Zyko, but going by the name I was gonna say Shizor.
Oh, that's what I was thinking. Now, Zyko, no, it is Zyko. I'm sorry, it is
So
Zyko. Because
it's
I don't have it in front of me, so I'm just kind
so
of going
it's
off memory.
Zyko is what the original name is, but then he decides to call himself Shizor. And the reason I'm saying Shizor is because it reminds me of
Hmm.
Shizar, Prince Shizar from
From
Shadows of
Star
the
Wars, right?
Empire,
That's
right?
what I was thinking too.
Yeah. All right. Glad we're on the
Shadow
same
of the
page with
Empire.
that.
Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah, that's the same thing I was going off of too. I'm like, this sounds like Shizar or like Caesar. How do we say it
Dash
in
Rendar was
Star
the
Wars?
coolest. Dash Rendar was the coolest Han Solo when Han Solo wasn't around.
I mean, to
Uh,
be fair though, Shadows of the Empire in general was just a really good, good freaking addition back when it was like we were the thirstiest for like Star Wars content back in the day. There was like nothing.
yeah,
And that was like, oh,
that was like the. I mean, that was the first new Star Wars story or whatever in the canon. That was the big thing back
mm-hmm,
then. It was like right after they came out with Power of the Force and relaunched the toy line in like 97, 98. It was
mm-hmm.
one of the first games to come out on N64, I believe.
No, it was great, but don't go back to play it.
Yeah, I don't think I would.
That's my advice. Don't play it now.
The only
It'll
game I
ruin your
think
memory of
I
it.
would still go back to play on N64 in its previous iteration, like I wouldn't need to get it updated or anything, is probably Rogue Squadron. That's the only one.
Hmm.
Rogue Squadron's
In
one
terms
of the
of well,
greatest games ever made.
in terms of Star Wars games, I think the best one is the pod racing game for N64. In terms of what's on the N64, the pod
Hmm.
racing game's great.
I don't know if I
That
ever
one
played
still
that
holds up.
one because I was very bitter as a child as well. It didn't just suddenly sprout up in adulthood. I've always been like this.
No,
Um,
no. Movies, the episode one's terrible, but the pod racing game is played it in college again. My friend had an N64, brings it up, and we're like, oh no, let's do some pod racing.
yeah.
That's
Fuck a Mario
some
Kart to whip up the pods. So the ball was going down.
no. So about yeah, going back to that.
So yeah, I forgot Star Wars tangent. Let me start the plot again. The plot of Toyble's Dragon Ball AF is that Goku's seed, dramatic pause for the camera, is stolen by a female Kaioshin, which she uses to impregnate herself and create Goku's illegitimate son, officially named Zaiko, Zaiko, but going by the name Shizor.
mm-hmm.
Shizor is superior in power to both Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta and Super Saiyan 4 Gohan, which leaves only Goku. Now seeking the power of Super Saiyan 5 to find the strength within him to defeat this half. Fuck, I'm sorry. I got a chihuahua in the background, so I'm trying to be real strategic about how I'm timing these lines, so that way I can salvage this in editing, but still keep the pod rolling.
Gotcha.
So, hey, we got a few people
Gotcha.
watching, and there's things up there that I can't read or see because I'll check those comments though, people. I see you up there. Um, Shizor is
Okay.
superior in power to both Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta and Super Saiyan 4 Gohan, which leaves only Goku, now seeking the power of Super Saiyan 5 to find the strength within him to defeat this half Kaioshin, half Saiyan adversary. Ironically, Shizor
Mm.
and his evil Kaioshin mother bear a few resemblances to Goku Black and Zamasu in Dragon Ball Super. So,
Mm.
reading that plot, before I mean, I was kind of thinking the same thing, like this evil Kaioshin or Kaioshin that eventually results in like an evil half Saiyan, half God thing. I'm like, that sounds a lot like Zamasu, Goku Black Arc. That's very interesting to me. And then you
Mm-hmm.
wrap up the paragraph with it. But even before we get there,
Yeah.
reading that plot, having really not been very aware of it at all, I could see why it would be interesting to not only kids our age back then, but adults even. Like that's a little bit more of an adult level Dragon Ball in terms of the
Mm.
themes, in terms of the plot. And I think that is another reason that kind of perpetuated this whole thing was like people wanted that to be real. Like we wanted Dragon Ball to grow up so badly, just like we want Dragon Ball Super to get out of this 10-year arc between, end of Z and the end of blah, blah, blah. We want to get out of that static period. We
Mm.
wanted that back then as well. We wanted it to be a little bit more adult, and
Mm.
this provided for that, at least
Yeah.
on
Well,
paper.
there's one thing I keep in mind about the manga, about Toy Ball's manga. It did come a few years after the initial rumors had like been at their heyday. I forget if it's like 2005, 2006, but it's definitely a few years after the initial fan art came out. Now, having said that, yeah, this is what an adult Dragon Ball fan would write. You gotta keep in mind, Dragon Ball GT by this point had been a few years out, but had been out for a few years. The fans had gotten older. they'd moved on in many cases to different older, like a lot of Dragon Ball fans. If you grew up with Dragon Ball, that's your adolescence, and then Dragon Ball Z is your teenage years. By the time you're an adult in Japan, you're making like you're watching like stuff like Berserk or Eva or Trigun. Your tastes are veering towards these more adult narratives. Now, having said that, do I think the sperm stealing that's an interesting element of the plot. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I feel like they kind of went a little because you gotta ask yourself like sometimes I don't know. I have issues with that. From
Come
a
on,
plot
man. You're
standpoint, I
you're
feel it's
not
a little.
you're not down with stealing somebody's baby materials?
I mean, it depends on how it's secured. Like, if using it through magic or like you're robbing your local sperm bank, that's one thing. But I don't think Goku visited those.
Yeah,
Like, it's
probably
such
he doesn't
it's
know what
it's an
those are.
unpleasant idea.
Yeah.
Uh,
But again, it's
He probably thinks
unpleasant.
it's like banana juice.
Fucking
Oh, it
banana
tastes really
juice.
yummy.
Of all the things you could have said, banana juice. That was great. Yeah, it definitely sprinkles in some more adult level things that, again, I think kind of perpetuate and kind of accentuate the want for a series like this. Now, it's 4, 5, 6 years. So like the rumors of I think maybe Toyotaro or Toible back then, I think maybe Toible is a little bit smarter than I previously given him credit for. I didn't realize that he picked it up 4, 5, 6 years after the fact and ran with it. I, I hate this fucking
Hmm.
chihuahua going on in my life right now. I live in a very patriotic town, and people just basically fucking shoot fireworks off from Memorial Day weekend until Labor Day weekend. Dog doesn't do well with them. It's great.
Mm.
So,
I can't hear any of it, so if it's any consolation, I hear none of the chihuahuas, none of the firecrackers going off there, so we're
all
good to
right,
go.
that makes you feel a little
Worst
better.
case scenario, you can always say like Frieza's blowing the planet up, again. So,
That
it's
was,
Dragon Ball podcast. So.
again. Hey, if you can hear Ginger, the goddamn chihuahua, in the comments, let us know in the comments. If you can hear it in the comments, let us know in the comments. It's been a long
Mm.
day. I still have more podcast work to do after this, and then I'm gonna try to get this turned
Oof.
around for like Tuesday morning because I'm wild.
Oh man, I got you there.
Anyway,
Okay, so
I didn't
yeah.
realize that he picked it up 4 or 5 years after the fact. So he was really smart to be
Mhm.
like, there's already this pre-established like head canon for some people based off of this art that's just on the internet. It's already kind of a brand in and of itself. I'm gonna pick it up, make it my own, and that's when he makes this, stealing Goku's sperm
Let me give you the
story.
exact year of when it started.
Sure. So I
So I
guess
can.
I think in terms of branding, or in terms of like jump starting the program for himself, good call. Kind of reminds
Mhm.
us of how the name of this podcast came about. Maybe I should have just named
So
this
the exact
podcast
year
Dragon Ball
is.
AF. What the hell, dude? I missed an
Mm.
opportunity there.
Okay, so the exact year it came out was 2003. That's when it started.
Okay.
You need to work on it periodically. It wasn't like a week to week thing. He would release a page really, and then he released another page, another page, another page as time went on. But you look at the artwork from this manga, this early fan comic, and you compare it to his work on Super. Like his current work is an improvement, yes, but you can see the foundation of what he would do even back in that. He was great. But it's not the only AF manga. And what's interesting is that he really toned down the excessive fanfickiness of it. Like, yes, it is Goku's evil son. I mean, where can you really take? Where can you really take AF? Like, there's two directions you can really take. You can go the direction that Toible went, or you can go the way that and I'm going to double check his name because I'm going to mess it up. I believe it's Young
Oh,
Gigi.
young Gigi. Young. I'm saying it Gigi because that's fun, but it's Ji.
Young
Um,
Gigi.
Gigi,
Gigi.
but it's young
Kind
dot
of
Gigi, all one word.
Mm-hmm. He
Because
took it and he's still going with it too. By the way, that's still, as far as I know, it's still going on.
huh.
He took it in a very, he went out there. He went out there.
Well, what I
Toible kept it very restrained. He kept it very contained. He kept it very much like, honestly, like we'd see in Super.
so
Very much a focused narrative.
do we know what led Toible to stop making this in the first place? Stop. I mean, because we had young Gigi pick it up in I think 2011. Your article says so.
Yes, but But Young Gigi's version is completely unrelated to Toybles.
So
There's
again,
no
it's just
connection.
somebody kind of picking up a previously established like fan canon, not canon, but fan brand sort of thing, and just kind of
Hmm.
taking it and doing his own spin on it. Like first it was the art.
Exactly.
Toyble picked up some inspiration from the art, said Dragon Ball AF is now this story, and then Young Gigi said, "Yo, that Toyble shit was cool. That fan art was cool. This is my version of Dragon Ball AF."
Yes, exactly. You have to keep in mind, AF is not a single continuity. In fact, if I compare it to anything, I would compare it most to Sunday Man. It starts off as artwork. There's no canon, just artwork. And then someone like, let's say, the guys who made Marble Hornets picks it up and makes a story out of it. But that's not stopping someone else from taking that same artwork and making their own thing with it.
Mm.
They may draw influence from one another, but they're completely separate narratives. So Young Gigi's manga is unrelated in every sense to Toy Bowls, beyond the fact they share the same name and beyond the fact they're inspired by the same artwork. Beyond that, there's no connection. And it's very clear if you look at how Young Gigi's manga differs from Toy Bowl's manga. If you look at the styles and the focus and everything, it's very stylistically different.
And in terms of the plot too, like we said, he definitely kicks it up another level. And
Oh,
I
goes
grabbed
insane.
I grabbed another screenshot from your article again. Go check it out on CBR.com. Anthony
Mind if I
Gramuglia.
read this one for you?
I'll go for it.
Go for the
Oh,
dramatic
that's
read.
right. It's because you've got the outline in front of you too. Duh. This is what
Yes, I
happens when you
do.
plan a podcast. People, technical difficulties be damned.
I'll
All right.
just read this whole screen cap you got here.
Sure.
Then there's Young Gigi's Dragon Ball AF, which has been running since 2011, comprising a staggering 19 volumes. In this story, Dragon Ball AF can be broken down into multiple arcs. First, and bear with me here on the pronunciation. First, Frieza's son Ize shows up. That's Eyes, spelled I-Z-E. I can't imagine what cold-related pun that's supposed to be a reference to.
Uh.
Yeah, it's obviously a reference to ice boxes. I don't know.
Oh.
Then,
Oh.
yeah,
Ice.
ice,
Ice. All right.
ice. Oh
Word.
wait, you didn't
Yeah.
realize that? I was being sarcastic. I thought you realized that one.
I got you.
Okay, it's all good. Anyway, then this is a separate saga. Second saga. Two demons, Chiyoko and Marble, emerge from hell to wreak havoc in the aftermath of Deborah's death. Keep in mind that by this point, Deborah had been dead for 20 years. Demon's actions lead to the Dragon Balls, sealed up following GT, to descend to Earth, creating new Shadow Dragons. Finally, a new enemy named Spoits shows up.
Spoits.
Spoits.
What a stupid name.
My favorite bad guy name ever, Spoits.
Spoits.
This in many ways sounds remarkably similar to what Dragon Ball Xenoverse and Super Dragon Ball Heroes would do, with absurd new iterations of established races and characters showing up to wreak havoc.
So
Now, I'm not sure if I would say it's a one-to-one comparison to either of those two things, but stylistically, I think this is much more in line with the fanficky style of those two.
one of the most
Throw everything at the wall and see what sticks.
One of the most notable parts of that passage to me, though, again, because me not having any real point of reference for what the plots are for these, is the two demons who emerge from hell to avenge Dabura. So I'm like, holy shit, that sounds like the plots for Xenoverse right off the bat. Toa and Dabigra?
I think that was their names, yeah.
So
it's been a while since I played Xenoverse. Names-wise, I'm a little hazy.
Yeah, I don't know. There's just so many Dragon Ball things in my life I don't even know anymore. So, my point is, when did those games did those two originally come out in Xenoverse? They might not have. They might have come out in Dragon Ball Online, because Dragon Ball Online, the Korean and Chinese MMO, is where Fu came from, right?
I believe so.
And if Fu was thrown into there, that's where they might come from, that continuity originally. And like that's kind of like the only thing that's really known for is the fact that somehow that plays into the canon, just like Kakarot does. Oh yeah, by the way, I've got friends tomorrow night that I'll be streaming with, Leonard and Katie from the NPC podcast. They want to talk about Kakarot, but I'm gonna probably take a dump on it. So be on the lookout for that. dude,
Kakarot just fine.
it
It's not
was.
great, but I think it's fun.
It just feels like a chore to me, man. But they both
Oh, it
enjoy
gets
it.
exhausting after a while, but it's fun when you're in small doses, I think.
It's just such
No,
a
but
friggin' grind.
and plus, I was given a review copy of Kakarot from the good people at Bandai Namco. I
Member of
am
the
not.
press.
No, so
So I just basically when I read it the first time, I was like, yo, that makes sense. These people could potentially have inspired Demigra and Toa for Xenoverse, but the timing there, I guess the years might be a little off. I'd have to double check
yeah,
that for you guys. It doesn't really matter, but
well, keep in mind they might have even just seen production art from those things. It's not like these games when they came out was the first, because you got to keep in mind they prep these games up for like a year before they come out. So if all you saw were like just images of these characters, that could alone inspire you. Plus, keep in mind these aren't very complicated plots. For the most part, it's bad guy from Z comes back or GT comes back, just in a new form. Ice is basically Frieza. Deborah is basically the two demons are basically Deborah. The Shadow Dragons are just the Shadow Dragons.
and I think that's another thing that probably lent itself to people latching onto it is it takes things that people genuinely like from Dragon Ball that back then at least like we hadn't seen Frieza a million times yet. We hadn't seen the demons a million times yet. Like the idea of we hadn't seen the Shadow Dragons a billion different ways yet.
Really haven't even now seen them a billion times yet. Honestly, I love the Shadow Dragons
So
conceptually.
bringing them back for that kind of idea, it's like, hey, we know that we liked it in the past. Why don't we just try to take it in and build off of it? Another smart move. Is that series still going on? Because it starts in 2011,
Yes.
19 volumes. It's still going on.
It's still going on inconsistently, but it's still going on.
Jesus,
Now,
people, leave it alone.
but what I think is really interesting with Young Gigi's version is, and I might not be pronouncing that name right, and I'm very sorry if I am. I'm sure someone in the comments like, oh,
I don't
fuck
think he
you,
gives.
it's
If he
Chai
happens,
Chai,
if he
whatever.
happens to find this, I don't think he gives a shit. And if somebody tries to leave a comment, something to the effect that you just said, fuck that person. Anyway, go ahead.
Fair enough. Yeah, reading the comments is a mess. Anyway, so the thing I think is really interesting about Young Gigi's by comparison to Toy Bowls is that Goku doesn't appear for a while. He's in state. He's at the end of GT. Like as the show ends, he's kind of stuck in with Shenron. The Dragon Balls and him are kind of sealed up, and he stays away for a while. So it gives the next generation of characters a chance to really shine. And one thing I do love a lot is how they use Oob. One of the most underutilized characters in all of Dragon Ball, Oob gets a really interesting series of transformations.
Man, when you think about it, Oob is one of the characters that got the biggest of shafts in Dragon Ball history. Like the end of Dragon Ball Z revolves around Oob coming into existence, and the beginning of Dragon Ball GT revolves around the fact that Goku's pretty much all trained him up, and then that's it. And then he comes in for a couple of like relief appearances throughout the 64 episodes, and then he eventually fuses with Majin Buu, and it's cool. But I remember thinking as a kid, like, how come he doesn't look like he just did a fusion dance with a big fat Majin Buu? I'm confused.
Mhm.
But
This manga does exactly what you think a Oob Majin Buu fusion would look like.
because he has a transformation, right? Like a Super Saiyan level transformation.
Like he becomes more like Jin like. He has like the holes. He has the pink body. He has like a head ridge, and then the hair comes out of it. It's a really cool looking form. And that's the thing ultimately with AF that I think was the big appeal, the new transformations. And that's one reason why I think Toy Bulls works better as a narrative, but Young Gigi's feels more like what everyone looking at these fan art, the old fan art would imagine AF to be, because Young Gigi just goes all in. He just gives everyone new forms. Everything is more action packed. Everything's more high octane craziness, and that's I think why a lot of people will probably go back to Young Gigi's work more than Toy Bulls, even though Toy Bulls is the better product. I think his narrative is better written. It feels more in line with Toriyama's Dragon Ball. But Young Gigi's, I feel, feels more in line with the fandom's idea of Dragon Ball, if that makes sense.
100%. You nailed it. So I was going to say, Toy Bowl or Toyotaro, that's Akira Toriyama. Young Gigi, or however we decide to say his name from sentence to sentence,
Mhm.
that's the equivalent of Toei Animation, Toei Productions being like, hey, can you just keep making some more Dragon Ball? It's cool. Just throw a new paint of coat on that bitch and we'll just
Mhm.
roll out another form. Like,
Exactly.
we'll just recycle a villain that we had 10, 20, 30 years ago. We'll bring
Mhm.
back things that we know are popular because we know that there's an appetite for them regardless. But
Mhm.
Toyotaro, I would hope anyway, and I guess I say that as a way to transition to. I hope Toyotaro's the right dude to be eventually left with the keys to the kingdom or the keys to the car, however you want to put it.
Mhm.
And it sounds like maybe he is because he sounds like he's more about a quality narrative or a quality story. If we ended up picking a guy like Young Gigi or maybe somebody else, like the guy who did the reincarnated as Yamcha. I know that it's very commonly discussed that he should have been the guy to work with Toriyama for Dragon Ball Super. If
Mm.
we'd picked somebody else, how would Dragon Ball potentially change? How could it be different in the future? How much of that love for a good narrative and a story from Toyotaro will actually come in or leak through once Toriyama's out of the picture? You think?
I mean, personally, if he wasn't distracted by, made dating games, I'd say the guy doing Berserk should totally do Dragon Ball. What was the game? It was the virtual what was a game? It was the virtual thing with the.
Japanese Girlfriend Club.
It was one of those games, one of those like those like pretty cute girl, like really young looking girl, like uncomfortably young looking
Yeah,
girls.
Japanese Girlfriend Club. That's what I said.
Basically, basically. If he stopped, if he just finished Berserk for God's sakes. Now, I'm still waiting for that, so I can't read Dragon Ball Super. I'm waiting for the next chapter of Berserk to
I feel
finally
like you're
drop.
gonna be waiting for a while, dude.
Oh, yep. I have nothing to come back from that one. That's just true.
Yeah.
But no, so in terms of who gets the keys, yeah, no, Toy. I think they made the right call so far, but because the thing is, we don't know how they would handle a whole series. The problem is if you make something too fanficky, and that's not a slight on fan fiction. I think fan fiction is a great medium. You get a lot of good stuff from fan fiction. But what ends up happening is you run into something very odd, and that is it becomes what the fans want it to be. And as someone who has written multiple articles about what fans want to see in entertainment, I can guarantee you that fans aren't right all the time.
Dude, we
Because
are right.
sometimes,
We are right on the fucking edge of a rant about the Snyder Cut right now. Are you sure you want to go down this road?
no, no, here's the thing, Snyder, I don't think there's a problem with the Snyder Cut in theory. That's not what I was referring to. Snyder
Oh,
Cut,
that's
if
just
Snyder
right
Cut
on the
exists,
back of my mind all the time, I guess.
I mean, like Snyder Cut, I don't think it's going to help the movie, but I'm fine seeing it.
No, but it rewards negative fan behavior. Why would you give a
Oh, yeah.
very vocal 1/3 majority of most of them? And I say I feel like I have to say most of them because Security Van Dan is like the biggest Snyder Cut guy in the world, and I love him to death. But
Mm.
every other Snyder Cut guy I've ever met or had to deal with in my life, it's been kind of a dick. And I feel like
Mm.
them placating to that is just setting a dangerous precedent. Anyway, that's all I'll
But
say.
the only reason it exists is because of the pandemic. The Snyder Cut wouldn't be coming out unless if
It's not coming
HBO
out till
had more
next year,
content.
man.
Oh yeah, I know, but it wouldn't be coming out if they were able to work on new content for next year. I think
Ah,
they're
now I
working on
understand.
everything they have. They have all these because you can't start production in this environment. So they're just taking everything they got lined up already, and they're just trying to do what they can with it. It's a unique situation we find ourselves
Yeah,
in, and
and
it probably won't ever
thankfully
happen again.
thankfully they have the technology too where they can use a lot of stuff that they've got like on the editing room floor and just use at home
Mhm.
ADR technology to have the actors record some lines and it'll be serviceable. I hope it's good. Again,
Yeah,
I just think
like
it sets a
they're not even
dangerous
doing
precedent.
reshoots. They're not even doing reshoots for it. That's
It's crazy. Pandemic, man,
yeah.
it's a whole new world.
Oh yeah, but no. That's what you were saying before. Actually, I was going to refer to with fans not always knowing what they want.
Oh yeah, sorry, I
I was going
hijacked
to say
that.
Cursed Child.
Cursed
That was all
child.
good. I was going to say Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. Yeah, it's a great example of fans wanting so desperately to see where the main trio's kids how they went to and when we finally got it, it was horrendously bad. Don't know many people who really like Cursed Child in its entirety. I know people who like aspects of it, but I've never seen someone who read all of Cursed Child or watched all of Cursed Child and was like, no, no, that's what I was imagining would happen when, you know, when Harry Potter and we go there. But it's just, I don't know, it's messy. Fans can sometimes want something and they think it's going to be amazing. Or the fan theories for the Avengers Endgame. I saw fan theories that were so involved and complicated. But when the movie came out, the movie didn't include any of those fan theories for the most part. But I think it was all the better for it because a lot of fan theories are predictable, whereas sometimes it's best if it's not predictable or it seems forced.
Well, I just think that there's a difference. I think we're kind of dancing around the. I think much like they did with Endgame, where they kind of danced around like the peripherals of some of the fan theories and like some of the themes or greater ideas of them. We're kind of dancing around it right now. Fan theories and story writers, or written stories and fan theories, maybe is a better way to say it, are two very different things. Anybody can make a fan theory. Just because you have one doesn't mean you have to share it. God, the internet's empowered you to the point where you can share your opinion very easily with your social media platform. Just because you got one doesn't mean you have to share it. You don't have to. It's all right.
I love reading fan theories though. They can be fun, but they have to be within the confines of knowing that this may not make sense narratively. You can. I love reading some insane fan theories, but sometimes at the end of the day you got to go, well, is this plausible within the confines of the plot? And could you show this story happening in a good plot? And having it be so that these two characters I love, they fight. That's cool, but does it make sense? Does it make sense to bring another Frieza person back to fight? Does it make sense to bring demons who are stronger than Deborah into the narrative, despite the fact Deborah was supposed to be like the super powerful, strongest of all demons?
He was the king of the demons, but these guys, they're like the super kings of the demons.
Yeah. They can fight Super Saiyan 4, 5, 6, whatever. And that's the other thing, too. With the fan art, even, it got out of hand. There is fan art of Goku as a Super Saiyan 10.
Oh, yeah.
There is no fan art of 7, 8, or 9, at least at the time of this fan art's creation. I'm sure now they exist. I would be shocked if they didn't. But when this fan art came out, like, as far as I knew, at least when I first saw it, this was back in 2000, like early 2000s, before Toyble's manga, back when this was a whole thing. As far as I knew, there was no Super Saiyan 9 or 8 artwork. It was just 10. And I'm like, what is this? And it was like him with like this pewter white skin, little tendrils of hair down his joints. And he looks like this marbled, like, you ever read the Anne Rice vampire stories?
I read Interview with the Vampire and Lestat, when I was a kid.
You read Queen of the Damned?
I did not know.
How they introduce all the old vampires that turn to marble, basically, because they're so old, their bodies start to calcify, basically.
Huh.
That's what this looked like. It looked like a calcified vampire version of Goku.
Huh.
And the thing is, that's interesting, I find, is that Super took a very different approach with Super Saiyans than GT did. GT went more in all out. Super Saiyan 4, I think, as a design, is really busy. It's cool, but it's a busy design.
It's an active attempt to like reset the clock on the previous Super Saiyan transformations. So like they were like, all right, you've already got the hair down to the waist. What are we gonna have it do next? Go down to the feet. It's an active attempt to reset in a different design that's meant to tie back to the more animalistic nature of a Saiyan. At least it makes sense. Super Saiyan 7 or whatever the fuck. Get out of here, man. I don't have enough paper for you to draw all the hair on.
And the problem, I think, with a lot of what these, let's be honest, most of the people doing the fan art were kids. It was essentially the first exploration.
Stupid little kids. Process. Sorry.
and that's the thing. It's great. It's great these kids were, engaging with the material. And even if they were like, in their 20s, it's still great, The creative process is a learning experience. You have to learn it. You have to develop it. You have to take that talent and go with it. But the problem, I think, with a lot of what they were doing was they were just taking what had come before and dialing it up to 11 without any consideration of if it made sense from a narrative perspective and if it made sense to look at. Because after a while, you can just add You can add hair all over a person's body all at once, all you want. It doesn't make it look strong. It doesn't make it look powerful. It doesn't make it look like a transformation that's reasonable. It just looks busy. It just looks like a lot there, and that's it.
So I think that would probably be a good place for us to hit pause for a second. I do have one more question for you, and then we have a couple of questions up in the comment section. I just want to make sure we address for the people. Not 100% sure if the stream is still active. If it is, cool. If you're still watching, thank you. I do see like a yellow thing on my TV screen up there that says error, but I also still see us streaming right above that. So I don't know. Maybe I'm taxing the internet a little high today. But either way, if you're still sitting with us here, thank you so much. We appreciate you guys checking it out. I got a few more questions for Ant. Again, the majority of what we're talking about today is based off an article he just wrote for CBR.com. What's the title of the article again?
The title of the article, I'm just looking it up because
Dragon Ball AF is the wild Dragon Ball GT sequel you never knew you needed or something.
Something like that. Something silly like that.
Dragon Ball AF.
Oh, here we go. So Dragon Ball AF, the Dragon Ball GT sequel that was way too wild to exist, explained. You have that explained at the end, so it gets that SEO. That SEO at the end there.
I gotta take an SEO class so bad, dude. Anyway, I gotta take an SEO class so badly. Anyway, it's everything that we're talking about here in this conversation today is based off of his great article written about Dragon Ball AF. So go check it out. I assume that part will get cut from the public thing. So I'll also take a second to say, hey, patrons, we love you. Thanks for supporting us. We appreciate you. Anyway, last question for you before we have a one or two questions up in the comment section. I just want to make sure we touch on here. Obviously we've touched on a handful of things that are very evident, that are very evidently played into Dragon Ball Super. Like, not only is Toyotaro the guy now, but like just general ideas. I think Toyotaro's whole first Dragon Ball AF plot is a great example in how it translates or could potentially translate over to Zamasu in the Goku Black arc. That said, is there anything else that you've seen in Dragon Ball AF that you would love to see in, the presumably upcoming, I guess I can say Dragon Ball manga? The Dragon Ball Super manga is still a thing that happens month to month. My friends who don't know how to fucking read. But eventually it'll be turned into an anime again. So anything that you want to see from AF in upcoming Dragon Ball material?
Yes. There are a few things. I do want to see more Super Saiyan forms. I'm a sucker for it. I know I just went on a rant talking about how I don't want to see Super Saiyan, like all Super Saiyans, whatever. But I you know what? When you make another one, I'll get excited over it.
So is yours a different color, or is it a different color Super Saiyan, or is it like a stupid long hair? I'm stepping on my hair on the floor Super Saiyan.
Oh, I have no idea. Something dumb. Make it stupid.
The second one.
Even if it's make it something stupid, something goofy and memorable. Sometimes that's the best kind. Making something dumb and absurd can be fun if it's done deliberately to be stupid and absurd, as opposed to accidentally.
Yeah, I don't think it was done deliberately by the fans back in the day making the manga. I think they
thought it looked cool.
Yeah, they were like, "Yo,
I thought
badass."
it was cool as a kid.
I don't know, man.
As a kid, I thought it looked awesome. But then I grew up.
I've been the same person since I was probably about 7. I know a lot of people probably think that I'm exaggerating, but I swear to God, I do the same shit now, minus like beers and smoking joints. I do the same shit now that I did when I was like 7 years old. Anyway,
I'm grateful. I'm grateful every couple of years. I feel like I've gotten so much more mature and adult than what I was 2 or 3 years ago. I'm like,
no, get that fucking self-growth bullshit out of here. Anyway,
no, self-criticism more than anything else.
Yeah.
Not self-growth so much as critical nature.
Hey man, self-awareness is what it's all about. Anything else from AF that you'd want to see besides these ridiculous transformations that I could dump on all day?
Yes, I would love to see Gohan and Pan take more transformations on. I'd love to see Oob transform. I'd love to see them take more of an active role in the narrative. That's something I really think that Super and GT missed the ball on, giving these guys more to do.
So you kind of covered what I was gonna say in terms of what I want to see. I just want to see
Super less so.
I want to see a future or like a bigger utilization of the more expanded cast. Really, I want to see Pan grow up. If Gohan,
Mm.
Goten, Trunks, Oob, if they all become relevant, if Tien Shinhan, one of my favorite minor characters, becomes relevant, I'm all about that. And we see touches of it a little bit, maybe not so much with Trunks and Goten, but Tien, Yamcha, Krillin, Piccolo, Gohan, at least in this manga arc in the beginning, they play a little bit of a role on like the front lines of things, which it's cool to see them back involved in a fight. So we're seeing a little bit of it. We did have a question in the comments that kind of ties into what we're saying here, though, and it's about Gohan.
Mm.
It's from my boy Brian Melchiori, who is a patron, patreon.com/Dragon Ball Super Dope. He says, how is Gohan in Dragon Ball AF? Is he like the super version of Gohan, or like the way he should be when he fought Cell when he was an 11-year-old boy? You know, he didn't put the
Well,
11-year-old
that's
boy
the thing.
part. I did that because I'm awkward, but
Mm.
what's he like in AF?
Well, that depends on which iteration. Most of the fan art depicts him as GT Gohan, even with the glasses, but as like kind of like the hardened warrior Gohan. I would say the closest approximation most of the fan art would make is a cross between the GT aesthetic with the glasses, but the posture of Gohan during the height of the Buu saga.
Okay.
I think it's a good comparison. I say the Toible one, it's kind of more leaning towards the humorous kind of Gohan, the more goofy, fun, dorky Gohan. Whereas the Young Gigi one, which is much more humorless, I'd say.
That's the serious
In style, again, it
transformations
feels
one
more
where
in
he hit
line with
Super Saiyan
Xenoverse or
4, right?
Dragon Ball Heroes, where it's most. What's up?
That was when he hit Super Saiyan 4 and the multiple transformations with Young Gigi in his version. That Gohan is the not fun one. The Toible one is fun and dopey and a little bit more of the Gohan that we see in Super up
Goofy.
until you probably say the Tournament of Power, maybe.
Yeah, I'd say that. I think actually, you know what? Actually, Tournament of Power. That's a good comparison for Gohan and most of the AF fan art. Uh, Toible, it's more goofy because I think Toible's one in general, it's a lot more jovial. There's a lot more fun to the Toible AF manga, which is why I think I like it more. I like that more Dragon Ball humor element to it. I really enjoy that. But again, the GG one, it's the characters are a little flatter. They're very they're defined by how badass they are for the most part.
I wonder if they're able to figure out like what the medium is, or maybe he's already working toward that medium. Like maybe that turning point for Toyotaro's take on Dragon Ball could be the Tournament of Power arc. Could not be. Maybe it could be. It's tough to say because it's when I think Tournament of Power, I think of the anime, and now Moro being the thing to precede it immediately afterwards. I only have it in the comic book form, but this arc, Gohan's pretty fucking badass. Maybe
awesome.
maybe
Gohan's a great freaking character.
Maybe he looked at like the elevation of what Young Gigi did when he picked up Dragon Ball AF in 2011 and was like, "Oh, this guy's doing some cool stuff, man." And when he got in, he kind of gut out whatever ideas they had to work on. Now maybe he wants to work more toward that sort of aesthetic or tone that the author who picked up his story or whatever, not his story, but the brand, the title AF,
reinterpreted, I'd say.
Reinterpreted, great word for it. He sees somebody else who picked up Dragon Ball AF and reinterpreted it, and he's like, "Oh man, this guy, did a great job. This maybe now that I'm the guy, I can kind of borrow some ideas and themes from him. Maybe Young Gigi's influence in Dragon Ball just as much as Toyotaro is right now, and none of us would even be aware of it."
I mean, it's possible. I think the more likely idea, and that's entirely possible. I'm not saying that's not the case at all, but I think the most likely case is it's just a case of natural progression. I think with Gohan, it's always a matter of him not wanting to fight. But when push comes to shove, he becomes this hero consistently in every arc. He doesn't really want to be the guy who's responsible for everything. And it becomes more apparent, but also because he gets more used to it over time. And I think what you see in Super is the same arc, just kind of repackaged in a different way. Whereas with Young Gigi, I think it's more of a flattening. I think it's more of a flattening effect of a writer who is good at making fight scenes, but not as strong when it comes to character moments. And I think that if it seems like he's more serious, it's not a result of a deliberate effort to be intense. It's more of a different of focus. And I think it's because character is not really a focus in the MVG manga as much. It's more of an action story.
Yeah. Less focus
And I
on
don't mean that
character.
dismissively.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, and I don't mean that dismissively. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying it's a. Because he does action really well. He does action very well. It's always intense. It's always epic. It feels like the hype moments from Dragon Ball Z you're always going to see. But I don't think he's a strong character writer.
Yeah.
I think the Toibo one has more strong character writing.
You can take away a lot of different things from anything that you watch. You know, different aspects of certain media are just better than others. Action is a thing that you can see in a comic book and, you know, register and say this is good or it's bad. Just because somebody's got good action doesn't necessarily mean the entire product is good. If you've got action with no story to balance it out in between, what's the point in me having any vested interest in this action in the first place? So it all kind of ties together. I hope maybe that we'll see more of, I guess, some of the more, I'm inclined to say like badass action stuff, but also just like the thing I want to see the most when Dragon Ball comes back, or in future Dragon Ball stories, because again, it is being made month to month in comic book form. What I want to see continue in Dragon Ball manga right now, and eventually in a series, is the expanded utilization of the cast and some kind of time jump, because that's what Dragon Ball has always done well, is time jumps, and Dragon Ball Super has yet to have a time jump, and this is the perfect time to have one, seeing as you just took a break after 131 episodes. So I think I want to leave it there. I think we've got a pretty robust understanding of what Dragon Ball AF was or is, at least surface level stuff. Anything else going on in your world, man? Anything you want to plug?
Oh, my world is a mess. My world last week has been insane. No, just my work consistently on websites such as CBR. I have a few pieces that will be hopefully coming out sooner rather than later from websites like Anime Herald and Anime Feminist. I have some just general my Twitter. My Twitter account is a mess and insane, and
At
usually
A Gramuglia, right?
Yeah, AGRAMUGLIA.
Silent G.
At Twitter. Yes. Well, it's weird. Italian names are strange. It's like a like GLIA is like a kind of a silent sound, but it's weird. Italian's weird.
Yeah, my mother's married name has a silent G, so I used to get calls from the telemarketers and be like, Ramaglia. It's like, no, it's Ramalia, but
it's no one ever pronounced it correct either.
So
it's never. I mean, you did great. I'm happy about that. Some people, it's a mess.
Yeah, never easy with the complicated last names and silent letters and all that. So thank you so much for taking the time, man. I appreciate it. I'd like to have you come back on a lot more regularly. If you're going to be writing Dragon Ball articles every once in a while anyway, feel free to consider this a platform to talk about it with other Dragon Ball fans. Maybe we can make this a recurring
even
thing.
Without that, bring me on an open forum. I'm fine with anything. Just throw anything at me. I'll talk about Dragon Ball whenever. But if you have an episode of Evangelion, then you better ask me. That is my ultimate area expertise.
So I would love to have that happen at some point in the future. I'm balls deep. I think we talked about it a little bit the other day in Japanese Spider-Man right now. Spider-Man. Episode 4 just went up this morning. Spider-Man Sundays, now available on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. It's a very different podcast, guys. It's scripted and there's lots of musical production things, and it's like a big writing exercise, I think, but I have fun and it's funny to me. So hopefully it'll be funny to you. You can go check it out. Maybe we have some video stuff on that as well to come, but for YouTube, at least, there is video stuff currently available on Patreon. You can go check that out there. But yeah, that's going to do it. A couple episodes coming up in the next few weeks, so be on the lookout for those. Make sure you rate and subscribe to Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, all the places where the podcasts live. If you don't review us and you listen to the show every week, I don't like you. So make me like you again and go review the show, please, because that's how other people find the show. Thank you. And Ant, thanks again, brother. I appreciate you taking the time, and I'll talk with you soon.
All right, you too, man. Take care. All right.
Woo! Pause this recording. Stop.
Mm.
And then YouTube. I don't know what's